Hey everyone, it's Strange Michael. I hope you're doing well today. I have a review for a remake of an old movie called My Bloody Valentine. Of course, here's my box set. I just reviewed the original movie just before this video. I hope you check it out if you haven't seen it before. This movie is amazing. However, we're talking about the My Bloody Valentine 3D remake from 2009. Now, I tried to watch this in 3D last night. Of course, it comes with like 4 pairs of glasses. The weird thing here, too, is this is a Lionsgate movie, just in case you don't know. And at the time, Lionsgate had a very distinct, cheap style look to them. They always looked direct-to-video. But at the time, we didn't really pick up on that. A lot of people didn't pick up on that. But when you get these, it says My Bloody Valentine 3D. It is the red and blue glasses, of course. And then on the side, it says Saw 6. The gore effects and stuff. I thought that was so cool last night when I opened this up. October 23rd, 2009. Anyway, I tried to watch this shit last night in 3D. Because on my disc, the special edition here, one side of the disc is, on the first disc of the box set, one side of the disc is 3D, the other side's 2D. I tried to watch it in 3D and the film looks so bad. It's shot so poorly that it hurt my eyes. And these little glasses, dude, they barely fit my head, you know? Like, I couldn't do it. And I had to just give up, flip the disc over, watch about a little bit of it, and then go to bed. Because I realized real quick, this film was not as good as the 1981 original. And that's kind of a shame, because I was really looking forward to it after watching the first one entirely last night after a really bad day at work. And I loved that first one. That remake, or that original movie, I mean, is so good. This remake, and I've said this before, I said it in my previous review for the original movie, I genuinely think this movie would have benefited a lot more from being like a legacy sequel, if you will, or like a reboot sequel, a requel, whatever the new Scream film deemed it as, to that original film, rather than a straight-up remake with some different characters, some similar names, and all that out of respect, if you want to call it that. It's kind of not. But let me talk about a little bit of my history with this remake of this original movie. Now, of course, this stars Jensen Ackles from Supernatural. And at the time that this was coming out, Friday the 13th was about to get a remake as well, not too far away from this movie. I think it came out right after or right before this movie. I believe Friday the 13th came out on Valentine's Day weekend. They might have come out at the exact same time. I don't know. But I am a big fan of the Friday the 13th remake, or at least I was. I haven't seen it in a few years, so I'll rewatch it at some point. But when it came out, I loved that, and I really liked this remake at the time, too. I liked it less than Friday the 13th's remake, but still, I liked both quite a bit. Before either came out, I think this is a 2008 thing or a 2009 thing. I believe this magazine came out in 2009. This is the only Fangoria I've ever owned. It is the Friday the 13th and My Bloody Valentine and Rise of the Lycans particular issue. And I was so stoked to get this because of the look of Derek Mears on Jason Voorhees. I love his version of Jason Voorhees. It's probably my favorite I've ever seen in any of the movies. I have not reviewed the Friday the 13th films yet on my channel. That's kind of my idea for the summertime this year. That and Sleepaway Camp. But there's a lot of stuff in here, like The Uninvited. They mentioned that in here. All of these pictures, dude, we used to see, or we got to see of, like, Jason with Derek Mears and all that. I loved it so much. And reading about Jared Padalecki, who is the other brother, Sam, from Supernatural, with Jensen Ackles playing Dean. I had not watched Supernatural at that time. I didn't know anything about either of them, but I remember reading in here all those years ago about both of them being in these two massively important, technically, not so much My Bloody Valentine as Friday the 13th, but massively important remakes that people were really, really discussing at the time. And how important that was that the two Supernatural brothers were in this, or either of these. And everybody seemed to be talking at the time, what was going to be better? Which one was going to have the better break on this? It seems to me, personally, that Mr. Jensen Ackles had a better career so far than my other boy, Jared Padalecki, even though I like the Friday the 13th remake more than this. But this 2009 remake of My Bloody Valentine is lacking in so much. It is such a rough movie. I haven't seen this in over 10 years. I've owned it the entire time. I got rid of my original copy of My Bloody Valentine, the 1981 special edition version that had all the extra gore included. I think that movie's phenomenal. I think that version is perfect. I think that the theatrical cut, which is what I reviewed for the channel, right before this video as a matter of fact, is good. It just has some stuff that seems like it's kind of missing at times. But overall, I still love it. I still think it's pretty close to being perfect. And I have a few nitpicks, but nothing really major with that film. Overall, though, My Bloody Valentine's remake is really the same story. And again, I think it would have benefited as a sequel to the original film rather than a remake, because a lot of the remake stuff here seems like it's supposed to be done out of respect, but it's really not. Anyway, let's talk about the plot here. Jensen Ackles has, basically his name is Tom Hannigan, and he encounters one night with his girlfriend at the time and her friends, Harry Warden, who is a lunatic, who dressed up in a coal mining outfit very much like the original movie. Looks just like it. This new costume looks just like the original 1981 costume. I love that about it for the Harry Warden outfit. The breathing sounds the same. Very cool in that element. The film is cheap as shit. It feels cheap. It looks cheap. Really looks cheap. That doesn't benefit this movie at all. Harry Warden comes face to face with Dean Winchester, which is Jensen Ackles, and he almost dies. Not Harry Warden, but, Jensen Ackles almost gets killed. A lot of his other friends get killed down in the tunnels. He barely escapes. And it kind of goes away for about, I think it was 5 or 10 years. I think they said 10 years in the movie. And he comes back after the whole blame that had originally happened for the accident that Harry Warden was in, basically, at that time. Jensen Ackles' dad passed away, and his character has to kind of take over the mine that his father owned and ran. Now, Harry Warden supposedly has been dead for a little while. He was killed in front of Jensen Ackles at the beginning of the film when he tried to kill Jensen Ackles. And nobody really knows if he's for sure dead, but supposedly he is. Now, when Jensen Ackles comes back to his small coal mining town, that this film doesn't really get that environment right, by the way. It doesn't feel like an actual community like the first film does. The first film really gets that community feel right, and it really helps that movie and benefits it a lot, because everybody knows each other's names. In this movie, you're supposed to get that feeling, but they really don't land it. It doesn't feel like that all the time. Jensen Ackles decides to sell the family mine, and a lot of people in town are pissed about that. They're pretty mad, and it really cut a lot of workers. The severance pay that was promised really got harmed with that too. But Jensen Ackles just kind of wants to settle his business and leave. He's just kind of done, doesn't want anything to come back to this town too after all these years, all the blame they put on him for the original accident way back in the day that the opening credits of the film tells you about. And for some reason this town blames him for the original Harry Warden incidents to begin with. Anyway, now the murders have started up again on the anniversary around the time, and mainly focused on Valentine's Day, of Harry Warden. And he apparently might be back and might be killing people. Nobody knows if he's truly back from the dead after he was supposedly killed by the sheriff, who is now retired, named Tom Atkins. Yes, Tom Atkins himself from Halloween 3 is in this. I love that guy. Great actor, really cool guy. Seeing him and Jensen Ackles in the same movie, that's really cool. Loved seeing him here as a horror icon. This film does pay respect to horror in that one way, I will give it that. Now, there is some kind of love triangle thing in here. Of course, our main character, Jensen Ackles, plays is named Tom Hannigan, not TJ, like the main character in the original film. His name is Tom Hannigan, which you could argue TJ might be the name Tom. I don't know, but it's really not the same character from what I can tell, but it's debatable. He's kind of in a love triangle once again with his ex-girlfriend who married the current-day sheriff, who is a total scumbag who cheats on his wife and stuff. His name, as you could probably guess, is Axel. And if you've seen the original film, you know a lot about Axel. There's some interesting things about Axel in that original movie. Now, this film tries to take some things from the original film and twist them up a little bit. I will say this. I don't think the community feeling is there. I don't think the writing is really here that really lands. The dialogue's really not that great. The mystery whodunit aspect to it is really not that great either. The way this film shines, very much like its heyday 1980s brethren, is the kills. The kills look, for the most part, not always, but for the most part when they're doing practical effects, they typically look fantastic. In my opinion, they do. That is the reason to watch this film. If you don't care about kills in movies, you want characters, you want story, you want really truly a good plot, not Lionsgate cheap-looking shit, this is not the movie for you. If you just want a slasher film with some pretty decent kills, this is for you. But be warned, there's a lot of CGI blood. Not a ton, but quite a few scenes where I'm like, you couldn't do that with a practical effect. Are you kidding me? Are you really that cheap you couldn't do that with a practical effect? There's a lot of that in here. I don't hate this movie by any means. I don't want you to think that when you watch this review. It's just so lacking compared to the original 1981 film that I also watched last night, that I can't help but sit here and tell you how cheap this movie looks and feels for the time it came out. I understand Lionsgate has that kind of reputation, even for that heyday when this movie came out, right? I understand that. But the film is like obnoxiously cheap. There's a lot of CGI killing in the film, not just with the blood, like squirting blood type stuff, but certain kills. Like one particular kill in the film, a person gets a pickaxe swung through the back of their head, their eye pops out, and it is so goofy looking. I mean, truly goofy looking, that there are no words for it. Just the word goofy applies to it, and that's really all I can settle on. A lot of this film is sloppy in that respect. I think it made a massive mistake of cashing onto the stupid 3D trend that was happening at the time. Personally, I feel, just like Friday the 13th Part 3, that I'm not a big fan of. I think it kind of ruins and harms this movie. I feel like a lot of the things that could have been really cool and well done here are ruined because of all the focus on the stupid 3D bullshit. There's one moment in this film, very much like the original Friday the 13th Part 3, that actually is worth seeing it in 3D. Everything else, no. It's not very great. This movie is so lacking, as I said. There just feels like there's no soul to this movie. And the original film feels like it has that, with all the things with the community, the way everybody knows each other, the friendships, the love triangle stuff, like in this film. But better there. All of that stuff is better there. Even down to the effects are better in the original film. Even the coal miner, I think, is more threatening in that movie than he is here, and he does a lot more running and stuff in this movie, so you think he'd be more dangerous and more scary. He's not. Personally, I think they missed out a lot on this movie and how weak it feels most of the time. It feels so lackluster. It's just a disappointment, and that's really the biggest flaw to it. I'm surprised with all the current day sequels and stuff that are coming out left and right, even with like Scream's new movies. I'm surprised they have not done a direct sequel to the original film with My Bloody Valentine yet. I'm very surprised by that. And personally, I kind of would like to see that. I really would. Because I like slashers a lot, and I would like a decently sized, budgeted movie. This would be the perfect thing for David Gordon Green to make. I mean that. But with Halloween Ends, maybe not. I mean, his eyes are focused on The Exorcist now. I think we're all waiting for that Hiroshima moment to happen now, where he drops a bomb and pisses everybody off in that fandom too, after like 5 other nukes that already hit that fandom. They've had some bad movies in that series, dude. Anyway, I don't really have anything else to say about this movie. Everything feels cheap about it, including the music, by the way. I forgot to mention the music. The music feels cheap as shit. It's just a truly rough movie. I don't hate it. I think it's very much an example of a movie that I can just turn my brain off and watch it, because there's so many frequent kills, and some that are actually kind of memorable, that actually stuck with me over the years. Since I haven't seen it in like 10, there's particular ones that I remember, like the hotel murders, that if you've seen the film, you know what I'm talking about. But a lot of them are just kind of pickaxe, pickaxe, pickaxe. You know, and the first film, the original film, changes that up every once in a while with some different things like a knife and some stuff that you haven't seen before, even for that time. All that being said, though, cool poster for a really rough movie. My Bloody Valentine 3D, which I'm reviewing in 2D. Not my biggest recommendation ever. Not the greatest movie ever. Now there's a siren coming down the road. Sorry, guys. This happens too much when I record during the day. When it comes to this remake of My Bloody Valentine, what do I think about it? I think it's a massively... it's a bummer, because the original film is so good. So good, so great is really the word I want to use. So great. For this one to be what it was is such a letdown, especially with somebody like Jensen Ackles and Tom Atkins involved in this remake. That's such a bummer, dude. It could have been so much better. It could have been so much better. You know how long I've been defending this movie because of my, I guess you could say, nostalgic feelings about it all those years ago. But here I am saying, no, I was wrong. This film was not that good. My taste has changed over time, but I've also had a standard that's actually developed in my movie taste, you know? And I don't think this one hits it. It's so bland in so many ways. But to be fair, and I mean this, I would rather watch this than almost anything that goes direct to video nowadays. Which says a lot, in my opinion. When this came out, it got wrecked in reviews. I remember that. So did the Friday the 13th remake that came out the same year, around the same time. They got trashed when they came out in theaters. and people hated them. All of the horror community hated both of those movies. But I see more positivity, oddly enough, for this movie over top of the Friday the 13th remake nowadays. In 2022 or 2023, whatever year this is. I see that a lot more positive towards this film than the Friday remake, which is crazy to me, because I think that's a lot better, because of Derek Mears. Overall, though, what do I think about the remake? I think it's a mess. It's a sad disappointment, and I'm sad that it had to be a disappointment the way it was. There's a lot of changes that could have been made to make this a better movie and to really save this film. But did they make those choices? Hell no. No, absolutely not. Anyway, when it comes to My Bloody Valentine, have you seen this? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Put your thoughts and comments down below. I would love to hear what you all have to say about this movie. Do you like the throwbacks to the original film? Do you like the throwbacks to a lot of old slasher trends and tropes? I like all of that too. I think it's good for the movie. Makes it a little bit more watchable, I think. It's got a lot of flaws, though. A lot of flaws. If I had to rate this film on a 5-star basis, I would easily give this a 3 out of 5 stars. It's very mediocre. Some people will probably give it lower. Some might give it higher. I'm sticking with a 3 out of 5 stars. I think it's not as close to being as watchable as I want it to be, but it has enough to carry you through the movie with the kills and whatever, when they're good. When they're good, they're really good. I mean that. And that's really what you come to this movie for, like a lot of the old 80s slashers that you forgot about, like The Prowler, which I'll talk about here soon. I just recently saw that for the first time ever, and I'll talk about it in a review. But what do I recommend, the original film or this movie? I think it's very obvious. I recommend just the original film, not so much this one. Just the original 1981 classic. That's a great movie. I really love it. This one, not so much. This has a lot of flaws, dude. Anyway, have you seen the film? What do you think about it? Put your thoughts and comments down below. I would love to hear what some of you guys have to say in response to me about this. What do you think about the Fangoria magazine? Can you believe I've held on to that thing for so long? I love that magazine. That was so great back in the day. My one and only Fangoria I've ever owned. Anyway, thank you all for watching. God bless you all. Happy Valentine's Day, and goodbye.